Okay, awesome. We are good to go. All right, folks, thank you for tuning in to our next guest speaker session. Today we have Hector Hinojosa, who is a financial consultant and business owner of SWAN-DFW Financial Solutions, a community venture started to help families and youth learn about the basics of personal finance, developing strategies and plans to ensure long-term stability and growth. Mr. Hinojosa, graduated from UT Brownsville and has also served as a board member for First Tee of Fort Worth and the Genesis Alliance, in addition to volunteering with his church. So, sir, thank you. And did I pronounce, I said SWAN and not SWAN. Is that all right? Did I get that right?
That's right.
And what does that stand for?
SWAN stands for, when I started my company, and we're a for-profit organization, but when I started my company, I went and asked my client, my typical client, what would you like me to do? What is a financial service company? What would we have to do to earn your business? And they said, Hector, all we want to do is sleep well at night. We don't want to worry about our finances. We just want to sleep well. And that's where SWAN comes from. We want people to sleep well at night.
Okay, well, yeah, it's creative. Look at that.
Yeah.
And it reveals the message. But
right.
So let's keep going with sleeping well at night. How can young people, how can individuals, sleep well at night, considering all of the things they have to pay for? How do they get their financial affairs in order the way a business would?
Well, I want to start by saying thank you guys for letting me come on here. I know you guys are really busy. Hopefully this will be worth something for you. Personal finance is not a matter of earning. Earning is good, but personal finance is based on spending. And rule one, it's kind of like living, breathe pretty regularly and you'll stay alive. Rule one is spend less than you make. And so a real simple concept that we teach people early on is the 70, 10, 10, and 10 rule. If you make $100 or 100% of your income, take 10% of that and put it away for this guy called Uncle Sam. Your taxes are going to be due. You're going to have to pay taxes. Go ahead and put them into your budget. Take the next 10% and put it away. We call it paying yourself first. Save that money away in a retirement account or in something that's invested, especially as young as you guys, in a long-term investment. And then the last 10%, the next 10% is give it away. Just give away 10% of your money, give it to your church, give it to a nonprofit, get in the habit of giving it away, holding the money loosely. The more you give away, somehow the more you get. So you get, if you take those 30%, 10% for taxes, 10% for yourself, 10% to give away, then the next 70%, you can spend every nickel and know that you got yourself covered. Know that you've got your taxes paid, know that you're putting money away for your future. That's boring and it's hard and people don't like to do that, but that goes along with, eat right, get exercise, and don't spend more than you make. And I have people that have made less than $50,000 a year that have tremendous wealth because they got into the habit of saving early. And I have doctors, especially doctors, that make $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year and have nothing because they've learned to spend every nickel that they make, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, so it is about making the numbers add up. At the end of the day, it's math. But you touched on something that I kind of want to elaborate on, the idea of wealth. Because obviously a doctor who is objectively wealthy doesn't feel wealthy, while somebody that's making the median income can feel wealthy. So what does it mean to be wealthy? Does it mean to be rich? Does it mean to just have a large amount of commas in your bank account? Or what is wealth? And
that's a really good question. There's a lot of definitions for wealth. Instead of wealth, if we could use the term financial independence, right? Financial independence means that you've gotten to a point where you don't have to work if you don't want to, that you've got enough money set aside where if you come in and your boss says something or they change directions or whatever, you can just say, you know what, I don't need to do this anymore. And that number, that's what people pay me money for, is to find them that number, that magic number, to where they can just say, it's called retirement. I like financial independence. It's that point where people say, okay, I don't want to do that anymore. Some people, and it's a lot of personal taste. I met a guy, we went skiing about 8 or 9 years ago, and there was a man probably 50 years old who had retired. He had been an executive for some Fortune 500 company, and he retired early, but he had to keep working. But his job was basically running a little gift shop on top of a mountain during the ski season, and he loved it. And so looking at that, saying that's a good financial plan. He has reached a point where he's doing what he wants to do, how he wants to do it, and when he wants to do it. It took some sacrifice for him to put some money away and all those kind, but he's at a point where now he can just say, this is what I want to do. And this is my life, and I only get one shot at it, and this is what's important for me, and I want to do that. And I think that's the thing. And sadly, unless you inherit a lot of money, most of us are going to have to sacrifice. I started with nothing, made a lot of sacrifice, made a lot of mistakes, and God's blessed me, and so here I am.
Yeah. Financial independence, to be freed of the anxieties, of having to work that job that you don't like, So yeah, I do like that better than wealthy. I don't know how the class feels, but I like that. So let's talk about how you've convinced me anyway that financial independence is important. So how would a young person, specifically a student, maybe who's just started working or will start working soon, how can they start budgeting? What are some steps they can take?
Well, the first thing is figure out exactly how much you're making, right? But it's like you said, it's a math problem. It's okay. There's a terrific number of apps that you can use. There's also spreadsheets. When my wife and I started, we did the envelope system. We would just take money and we'd say, okay, we're going to spend $100 on eating out, and we would put $100 in a little envelope that said eating out. And when that envelope was done for the month, we were done eating out. There was no, I'm going to borrow from another envelope. Understand how much you're making, put 10% away for yourself, 10% for charity, and 10% for taxes, and then live on those 70%. That's 101. Do that. You're going to need, for most of us, you're going to have to eventually borrow money. Okay, borrowing money is not a bad thing if you're borrowing it for the right reasons. If you're borrowing money to buy a house, that's a very good thing, because house prices go up, they appreciate in value. So you want to buy things that go up in value. So you buy a house for $100,000, and in 10 years you can sell it for 125 or 150, or in today's market, 200,000. You don't, but to do that and to get a good loan, you're going to need a good credit score. And what a good credit score means is that you have borrowed money from other people and you have paid it back. And so I've got two sons, a 24-year-old and a 22-year-old. And early on, they went and got a credit card, and one of them's a musician, so he bought a guitar that he could have paid cash for, but he bought a guitar on credit and paid it back in 90 days because that starts establishing that he's a good credit risk. A creditor wants to see that you borrowed money and you paid it back and you paid it back on time. The more times you do that, the better your credit score. The better the credit score, the lower the interest that you will pay on your loan. The lower the interest, the bigger the house, or the lower the acquisition cost is. And so credit is going to be an important part of building wealth because you need to borrow money. So borrowing money to buy a house, that's a good thing. A car, no, most people never own their cars. So with a good credit score, sometimes you can lease a car. You want to rent things that go down in value. When you buy a car for $20,000, as soon as you drive it off the lot, it's now worth less than that, worth $15,000 or some number less than that. So leasing those, I'm not saying do that. I'm saying think about it. That's a good thing. The worst thing you can do, one of the questions was the worst credit mistake you can make, is to go with your credit card and buy a TV because, you know, the Cowboys are playing, or they were playing pretty well, and then they stopped for some reason. You want to watch them on the big screen, and so you go buy a $2,000 TV and you put it on your credit card and you start making the minimum payments. That minimum payment is only going to be about $20 a month, but you're going to pay that for about 16 years. So think about what you were doing 16 years ago, something that you would have bought that would have been really cool 16 years ago that you're still paying on today. That would not be a good thing. We don't want to use credit for that kind of stuff. We want to pay that if we can, cash or in 90 days, so we don't pay interest. So, make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you covered so much. You covered credit, you covered just how to budget. You talked about debt, you know, and how to you know, take on debt wisely. And so, and you also brought up a car. Let me bring up one question.
Okay.
It was, how do I save money for a car? I know what you just said, but what about a young person that may not have any established credit and they need a ride to get to work?
Yeah.
How could they save for, or any kind semi-large well, that is a large expense. How could you? Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So one of the things in America today, the words delayed gratification don't work well. In America today, we want everything right now, and we want the very best. And so what we get in trouble is we start to buy things we really can't afford. So the first thing I would do, you know, my first car, and this would have been in 1970, I think cost $800. And I had to take a loan for it. I had to put like $200 down, and that cleaned out my my savings account. And I think my payment was like $59 a month, and I didn't know. I had a part-time job. I didn't know how I was going to make that payment. But I knew, one of the things that I knew is that I needed the car to make money. I needed to get to and from work, and so I knew that I could make more than $59 a week, so I could make the car payment in 1 week's work. And I really wanted an $8,000 or $9,000 car, but I knew I couldn't afford it. And it wasn't really me. I had a brother 11 years older than I was, who was in the military and was an officer. And so he guided me. He said, you just can't afford it. You're going to get yourself in a hole and you won't get out. So I had somebody that spoke to me and told me things I didn't want to hear, but I listened to them. So find a car, find something that, you know, that runs, that you like. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be the greatest car. It's not going to be the last car you own. But make sure that you can afford the payment, because with a car comes ancillary things like gas, oil changes, registrations, cars break and you're going to have to put new brakes on it. You're going to have to fix the transmission. When you buy something, all of a sudden you're getting a lot of different things that could go wrong, and you need to plan for those.
Yeah. You need a car. You need a car to work, and yeah, that registration, it comes every year, but it's like, man, you never plan for it. You're always surprised, but then you remember. Yeah. So, okay, let's talk. So we've covered.
I had a question here that was pretty good, is how do I start investing? So let's go back and talk about somebody who has taken the rule and they're giving away 10% and they're saving 10% for taxes, and now they've got 10%. The first 10%, the first money you want to save is you want to have what's called an emergency fund. And that could be maybe $1,000. So the first goal is I want to save enough money to have $1,000 in my savings account, right? So when the registration comes, or when the car breaks, or when we need windshield wipers, or whatever, we've got money. It's not a crisis. We've got the money to go and fix that. So the first goal is save $1,000. Once you have that emergency fund, you can start investing. And so I tell people pretty simply, just open an account. My custodian, the people I work with, are called Charles Schwab Company, but you can do Coinbase, you can do Robinhood, you can do Ameritrade, and you say, I'm going to start putting whatever it is, $25 a month, and I want to buy an investment that invests in the top 500 companies in America, and just start doing that until you have about $10,000. And then at $10,000, we can change that to buying individual stocks, maybe buying some cryptocurrency, maybe buying some of the more, the sexier things. But those are the first two steps: is get an emergency fund, and then get $10,000 in the S&P 500. And then you have built, think of a pyramid. You've built the base of your financial pyramid solidly. You've got an emergency fund, and you've got good cash money and a fairly conservative investment. And then we can start doing other things.
Yeah. Wow. So that's great advice. So a question just popped up in the chat.
Okay.
Can you explain the difference between a mutual fund and individual stocks? And are those the only two? Is there anything else that we're leaving out?
That is a great question. Okay. So no, there are as many different ways to invest as there is Mexican food. They come in all, but for purposes of today, there's an individual stock. Let's talk about a stock that you guys probably know pretty well. It's a company called Apple. Okay, Apple makes iPhones. They make iPads, iMacs, they watches. And so if you were going to buy, if you said, "Man, I really like this stock. I want to own a piece of Apple," you could actually go into the market right now. You need a brokerage account, but you could buy Apple today at this very moment, I will tell you, and it will cost you $148.27, and that would buy you one stock. Now, if you were starting out, you could go to Schwab and say, "I want to own Apple, but I don't have $148.27. They'll sell you a slice of Apple. So $25 and you get a slice. So that's a share. Now you own one share of millions and millions of shares, but you own one share, and that price goes up and down every minute of every day when the market is open. Okay. There's a great wealth to be made if you pick the right company, but there's also a risk that if something bad happens to that one company, you could lose a lot of money. Johnson & Johnson is a good example. Johnson & Johnson now makes vaccines, but about 2 or 3 years ago, they had a problem with baby powder. when a product of a company starts to kill people, people don't want to own the stock anymore. Plus, you have lawsuits coming, and you have that. So the stock, if all you had was one share of Johnson & Johnson, maybe in the morning it's worth $300, but by afternoon it's worth $200. You've lost a third of your investment because you were owning the wrong stock. Okay, so how that risk gets lessened is companies, a mutual fund buys shares of Apple, but they also buy shares of, say, Amazon and Johnson & Johnson and Microsoft. And so they have a basket. That fund owns, say, 30 or 35 companies. Then they sell you a share of that fund that owns all of these companies, and you own all those shares, those individual stocks, mutually with other investors. And so that fund then is referred to as a mutual fund. The guy who runs the fund is called a fund manager, and he's going to make money because everybody does things for a living to make money. And so the fund manager is going to make money. You know, it's a little bit, but you just need to know there's people, but that's the difference. Is a fund owns a lot of different companies. So if you owned that fund and you own Johnson & Johnson, and Johnson & Johnson went down that day, but the other 29 companies went up, you're still going to have a good day. It's a shared risk. It's a broader risk. You're not putting all your eggs in one basket, but you're still owning companies. You're just not owning individual companies. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah. It's like diversification of crops.
Right.
Even, you don't want to have a drought.
Right.
So I have a great question that just popped up in my direct message. So
Okay.
let's pretend that I'm putting my $25 away every month in my Robinhood account, and I've made it to my 10,000. First question, how long would that take? Second, and here's the actual question. When you get a lot of money, let's say like a couple million,
Okay.
would you put it all in the bank? Would you invest it all? What would you do? I guess first question, how does it go from 10,000 to 2 million? And then once it gets to 2 million, what do you do with it then?
Well, let's say I'm just going to do no interest here. If all you did was do $25 a month and never added to it or anything, it would take you, you would have, in 1 year, you would have put $300. So in 10 years, you'd have 3,000. The reason we say start with 25 or 30, saving money is a habit that grows. So if you start putting $25 and then you say, okay, you know what, I think I'm going to bump that now to $27 or I'm going to $30, it becomes, or you get a pay raise at work, you get an extra, 20 cents an hour, and you say, you know what, I'm going to take and I'm going to go from 25 to 30 or 35. The hardest thing is to get started. Once you get started, you can keep adding to that 25, and hopefully within 3 or 4 years, you'll have your 10,000. If you get a tax return, if you get a windfall, if you get a bonus, if you get something, stick some money in that and try, maybe set a goal. I'm going to have $10,000 in less than 3 years. So that's one thing. Just get started. Get started and keep feeding it, and good things will happen. How do we grow money? Okay, there's a rule. Well, I wish I had there's a rule of 72. Okay, so you take the number 72, you divide that 72 by the interest rate you're going to get. Do you have a whiteboard or something that you could pull up? No,
actually
on your Zoom.
Possibly.
So let's say that we had $10,000 and we were going to leave it in the bank. Somebody said, should we leave it in the bank? So you take the number 72 divided by the interest you're going to get, and let's say we can get 2%, 72 divided by 2 is 36 years. It would take you 36 years at 2% interest for that $10,000 to double. So if you're 20 right now and you did that and didn't touch it, by the time you're 56, you would have $20,000. And there's a lot, we can go through number by number by number, but let's say that we could put you in a fund like something that had Apple and Microsoft and those kind of things. And we said that we could get 12% instead of 2%. Then you would take the number 72 divided by 12, because that's the interest that we would anticipate, the rate of return. The answer to that is 6. That would mean that every 6 years, your money would double. So let's play that out. You're 20 years old. It's taken 3 years to get $10,000. You've invested in a fund that's making 12%. When you're 26, 6 years later, that 10,000 becomes 20,000. 6 years after that, if you leave it alone, at 32, that 20,000 becomes 40,000. At 38, 6 years after that, that 40,000 becomes 80,000. 6 years after that, at 44, that 80,000 becomes 160,000. At 50, it's now, what did I say, 150? So you're at 300,000. At 56, you're at 600,000. And at 62, you're at $1.2 million. And you never added a nickel to that 10,000. What you did is you let it grow at a rate of return that was really pretty good. It's hard to get, almost impossible to get 12%. But that's the power of compound interest. Put that on your side, put money away, don't touch it. And we just showed you that if you put it in the bank, my mom always said, put it in the bank so you don't lose any money. But taking that 10,000 at 20, I would have, at 20 years old, that 10,000 at 56 would have been 20,000. If I had invested it, the same money over the same amount of time, that 12%, I'd have close to $600,000. That is the difference between saving and investing.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, 12% is like amazing. As far as a mutual,
hold on a second.
Okay.
If you bought the S&P 500, and that's just the biggest 500 companies in America, that's what we would tell you to put the 500 companies, that first $10,000 in. That since 1950, that rate of return has been over 10%, not 12, but it's way more than 2. Now, it'll go up and down in value, but you just need to hold on. So it's not an impossible thing to do, just a really conservative, out of the box, nothing fancy, S&P 500, biggest 500 company, you're going to get over 10% over the long run. That's really simple to do. So it's not, we're not talking pie in the sky stuff. We're talking real live stuff. Just takes a little while to get started, and it takes a little while to let the money. What we want to do is we want to get the money working as hard for us as we work for our money. You see, when I grew up, we were very, very poor. All I heard was, I hope there's enough money to get us to the end of the week. I hope there's enough money I hope nothing bad happens so we can pay all the bills. And so as a young kid, for me, money was a scarcity. There wasn't enough of it. There just never was. Money was the problem. In more affluent homes, very early on, wealthy families teach their children, put the money to work. Get your money working for you as hard as you work for it. And that's what I'm trying to teach here is we need to change the way we think about money. It's not the enemy, it's a tool. And if we learn how to use the tool right, it'll give us financial independence. And then we can make then we can change the world. We can change our world. We can change our kids' world. We can change our parents' world. We can change the world.
Yeah. Okay. So I had no idea, and that's fantastic. So let's talk about something a little more sexy when it comes to investing. What about cryptocurrency? Okay, then this should be right in your wheelhouse. Crypto, Dogecoin, all of it. S&P 500 or Elon Musk coin, which is the better buy?
Well, I don't know what Elon Musk coin is.
Bitcoin.
I own, yeah. So what we have is something brand new, and a lot of us are still trying to figure it out. There's a huge difference between investing and speculating. Okay, what we do is invest. We talk about the S&P 500. We talk about company. We talk about Tesla, Elon Musk. We talk about Apple. We talk about those. When you get into something like Bitcoin, that's a very speculative ask. And you need to be aware. Now, there's been, especially young people have made, we have a friend whose daughter put $1,000 in, and I think she has like $8,000. What she won't tell you is that she also put a couple $1,000s in something else a year ago and lost everything. So you need to be prepared to lose everything. Bitcoin is really interesting because we don't know what it really is. The very first thing that was bought with Bitcoin 15 years ago was a pizza. Okay, two young guys decided, we're going to buy a pizza, and a pizza parlor said, sure, give us a small part of your Bitcoin, and we'll sell you a pizza. When they go back and figure out how much they actually spend for that pizza, it's close to $1 million. Because if they'd have held on to that small bit of Bitcoin, that's what it'd be worth now. I don't know how good that pizza was. I suspect it wasn't worth $1 million. So it's hard for it to be a currency when you can't spend it because it's so volatile. It's hard for it to be an investment because there's nothing backing it. The worth of that really is what everybody thinks it is. And so from an investment point of view, we kind of stay away from it. I'll tell you how we invest in that. We want to play in that. We just don't do it that way. And but 1% of portfolios. So if somebody had $100,000, we would put $1,000 into some kind of crypto thing. But let me tell you this story. In the 1850s, 1849, that's where the San Francisco 49ers get their name, gold was found in the hills of California. And so a lot of people from the East went west to start mining for gold, not for cryptocurrency, but for actual gold. A very small percentage of those people made any money. Some did, some hit big veins, some made millions, but most of the people that went out there didn't make any money. But you know who did make a lot of money? The people that made the most money were the people that sold the shovels and all of the tools and the tents and the equipment. All the people that sold that stuff to the miners that were coming out to do their fortunes, they made a fortune and they weren't taking as big a risk. So with that story in mind, one of our holdings that we have in a lot of portfolios is a company called Coinbase. Coinbase is the platform where a lot of people are buying their Ethereum, their Bitcoin, and their other cryptos. So we're not directly invested. We're not going out and mining for gold in the hills, but we want to sell the tents. We want to sell the shovels. We want to make it easy for those people that want to do it, so we can make money in that area without taking that much risk. How's that?
Yeah. So I understand what you mean contextually when you say there's a difference between investment and speculation. What is, if you don't mind, just for me and for everyone, what is the actual definition of speculating?
All right. Let's say that you had $1 million, right? You've worked your entire life, you're 55, you're 60 years old, you're ready to retire, okay? And somebody like me comes to you and says, if we invest this right, we can take $60,000, $75,000 a year with your pension from being a teacher, with all the other Social Security, you're gonna have a great income, and invested well, you'll have income for the rest of your life. That's investing. We're going to put them in portfolios. We're not going to take a lot of risk. You're going to have a good income. You're not going to become a multimillionaire. You're not going to become a billionaire, but it's going to be good. That's investing. That's kind of middle of the road. Speculating says, okay, you got $1 million. You've worked your entire life. You're 50, 55 years old. I have this coin, and it's better than Bitcoin, and it's a thing called Hector coin. And if you invest in this and it hits, you could have $1 billion, okay? But if it doesn't hit, you're gonna lose everything. That's speculating. That you're gonna take that big pot of money that's taken you all your life, you're gonna move it to the middle of the table and say, I'm all in on this one thing. That's a heavy bet. Some people take that, and some people win, and we always hear about the winners, and we think, well, we want to be like them. But for every winner, there are hundreds of losers, and we never hear about them because they're embarrassed, because they just kind of fall off the face of the earth. I always laugh when people go to Las Vegas to gamble. I've never met anybody that has gone to Las Vegas and lost money. Everybody that I always talk to said, yeah, we went and we broke even, or we went and we won, $100. And I keep thinking, if everybody goes to Vegas and wins, they wouldn't have the money to build all these new hotels and do all these cool things. Somebody's losing money because they're making money. So that's the difference. Speculating, you could win big, but you could lose it all. And you may want to do some of that with some of your money. I don't think you want to do it with all of your money.
Yeah. So keeping with the casino analogy, could speculating be like pulling the slot machine,
Yeah, pulling the slot machine. Yeah, I mean, that's just random, and that could be true. I would like to at least think there is some strategy if you're going to speculate, maybe playing blackjack, or at least you know how many cards are out, you know what your odds are. You can, if you know what you're doing, you can try to put the odds on your side, but you need to know the house is going to win 70% of the time, and you just need to know that, and you're not going to beat the house consistently, and so you have to learn. There's a phrase that I really like now, especially with young people, is stay in your lane. You need to understand what your lane is. You need to understand the risks you can take, and you want to stay in there. And it's going to look way more fun doing the other things. You just need to do what you do.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we have a few minutes left. Let's talk about one more big topic. Multiple sources of income, side hustles.
Great question. So there is a tremendous opportunity for young people. And so, matter of fact, even last night, my 22-year-old came to me and said, what do you think about that? He has found a way. He's a musician. So one of the things that he does is he posts a lot of things on YouTube. He posts a lot of stuff on Facebook. Caleb Hinojosa is his name. If you want to get really depressed, go listen to his music, because it's all about really sad things. But he's got a following, and he's beginning, and his goal is to get enough followers where he's going to make residual income. One of the questions was residual income from his music, from people playing his music. He invests money in it. He buys ads. He does those kind of things. But about 3 or 4 months ago, he started advertising T-shirts. You can go on a website that he owns, and create a t-shirt and order it. He never touches it. He just hosts the website. And it took him a week to put it all together, and he sold, I think he had 40 visitors a month and a half or 2 months ago, and he sold a couple of t-shirts. Not enough money to make him excited. But last night he walked in to my office and said, you know that somebody bought another t-shirt from me yesterday, and he hasn't touched that website, but somebody somehow found his website, saw the t-shirt, ordered a t-shirt. The manufacturer is making the t-shirt. They're going to ship him the t-shirt. They're going to bill him for the t-shirt, and he's going to keep the profit. That is a great business model, because once you set it up, people are just buying things from you without you having to spend a lot of time doing it. So those kind of things are out there. And I would be, if I encourage my boys to keep thinking in terms of the new economy. Other side hustles, I mean, there was a guy just, I think he's on, I know that I saw it on Facebook, that he did the delivery, I forget which one, one of the delivery things. He did it for 29 days and made full-time and made $8,000 in a month. His goal was to see if he could make $100,000 doing DoorDash. And he did it. He did it for 1 month. So there's hustles out there. You don't necessarily have to get a full-time job and go and work for somebody. Real wealth in America is built by owning your own business. So I would encourage people that have that knack to start thinking in terms of, how do I go into business for myself? So.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. At times they are a changing. Something like 30% of young people have multiple sources of income. So we are, I think, out of time. It is almost 10. Mr. Hinojosa, are there any last words? And do you have any way that the students could follow you or get in contact with you?
Yeah, the other thing that I did when I set up my, when I asked my clients what they wanted to do, they said, we want to sleep well at night. But the other thing they told me was, I don't want to be poor. I may never be rich, but I don't want to be poor. So if you type in idon'twannabepoor.com, you'll go to my website, and on my website, you can leave me a message. You can, ask me a question. I'd be happy to answer it. We also have an organization called FEAST. Financial Education for America starts today. We do a lot of workshops in businesses. A business owner will bring us in, and we'll do talks just like this for people. I would and certainly you can reach out to me, but there's a lot of good information out there right now. And I would just stay attuned, because like you said, things are changing. Our economy is going to be way different 20 years from now than it is today. And so things like electric cars that 20 years ago we wouldn't have thought about. Now companies like GM, who all they make us internal combustion cars, are saying they're going to stop making those cars in 15 years. The things are changing so radically, but we're not seeing how quickly they're changing. Get an education, right? Go to college. A college degree doesn't mean, a college education doesn't mean anything if you don't get the right degree. Get a degree in finance, get a degree in something that you can make a living at. But I don't like finance. I want something that I want to go to. I hear this a lot. I want to go to college for something that I love. Okay, well then don't spend that kind of money. Don't go get a literature degree. Don't go get I have a young man whose parents are sending him to get a dead language master's degree. It's a dead language. How are you going to make a living with that? Think of your education as an investment. You want a good return on your investment. Make sure you get something that you can make a living at. Find your gift, find your passion. You've been created with a special gift. Find that, nurture that, get a coach or somebody that can, or a mentor, somebody that'll help you. If you listen to people who have your best interest in mind, if you listen to people and you do as they tell you to do, you'll do well. But we get in trouble is when we try to figure it out for ourselves, and it gets tricky. Anyway, I'm past my time, I think.
No, it was great. Mr. Hinojosa, thank you so much. Folks in the audience, thank you as well. Everybody have a fantastic weekend, and I hope you learned something that will help you as you go forward in life. So again, thank you everyone.
Thank you.